Азов! Черного солнца спираль, печатана в сотни рук. Здесь евразийскую шваль ловят на волчий крюк. Памятью предков горды, вечности слышат зов. Руса степной орды обороняет Азов. Памятью предков горды, вечности слышат зов. Руса степной орды обороняет Азов. Дрогнет Кремля стена, видишь, подняли меч. Новгород, Галичина и Запорожская сечь. Смерти и грязи фаза, Русь пробудила вновь. Молодость нашей расы, новой Европы кровь. Смерти и грязи фаза, Русь пробудила вновь. Молодость нашей расы, белой Европы кровь. Казак, Богу войны молитва, солнцу салют и снис. Пусть завершится битва на площадях столиц. Богу войны молитва, солнцу салют и снис. Пусть завершится битва на площадях столиц. Памятью предков горды, вечности слышат зов. Русь от цветной орды обороняет Азов. Памятью предков горды, вечности слышат зов. Русь от цветной орды обороняет Азов.
Engines. Sorry, that one was a half-breed. 7 little, 8 little, 9 little engines. 10 little engine boys.
Just when you look at the reality, though, Mr. President, I mean, you won the popular vote in 2020, but it was still deadly close in the Electoral College.
7 million votes.
Yes, but you're behind now in the popular vote.
I don't buy that.
Is it worth the risk?
I don't think anybody's more qualified to be president or win this race than me.
I can't see a damn thing.
Elections are about the future, not the past. They're about tomorrow, not yesterday. And the question on so many people's minds right now is, can you serve effectively for the next 4 years?
George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought could happen. I'm the guy that put together the South Pacific Initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations, out, not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well, to help Ukraine. I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget. And for example, when I decided we used to have 40% computer chip, and we invented the chip, that little chip, the computer chip. In every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. I'm going to come to the overflow room.
Направ мою руку, Боже, хай знищить усе вороже на цій землі.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to have you all here with us for another week of the Warcast. Today is just going to be me and Alex. We have our usual other co-host taking care of some personal stuff. I'm sure he's probably talked about it on his other show last night. Really successful one. After he was talking about Lucas Gage for most of the night, it sounds like. But go and watch that if you want to watch Lil Cow literally break down to a paranoid schizophrenic. Yeah. What else we got here? For tonight's brief, guys. Oh, well, we do have some new people, gentlemen. Let me introduce you guys to what we got here. This is a pro-Azov, pro-Ukraine stream, and we cover the war in detail in Ukraine to as much as I can research it. Tonight, we do have a couple of articles to go over regarding Ukrainian mobilization numbers, stuff like that. What else? Some stuff about Chesed Yar, the dismissal of Sodal. I tracked down an account that said they published the letter. Some other stuff. So, and then we'll go into combat footage and probably go over the, let's see here, the Children's Hospital strike. I've been scrolling through the news feeds on Telegram, and it's very absent in the news. They're covering the elections in France way too much versus what's happening in Ukraine with that loss of life. Anyway, what else we got? Sorry, a little sore about that. And yeah, personally, life's been good. Staying out of the heat, just taking care of life, guys. Nothing terribly important or worth revealing. So, What about you, Alex? Do you have any things you want to talk about before we start the brief tonight?
Yep, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's no problem.
Boomer tech problems come before everything, apparently. And so, yeah, no, I don't have really anything to add. I'm just kind of seething about, like you were saying, the missile strikes against that children's hospital, which is like honestly probably one of the newest lows for the Russian army.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed. If you guys get a chance, check out D's Sunday night. I think it was, or not even Sunday night, really. Yeah, no, that was a Sunday night shit show special on Lucas Gage. It was pretty funny. The first 3 hours is all I was managed to catch. I didn't know what happened after that, but yeah, pretty funny little cow. Make sure to bully him on Twitter if you see him. Yeah, that's all I really have to add.
Could we get someone engaged in the Rumble chat? I don't have an account there. Looks like we've got an actual person. It's not a bot trying to engage us there.
Okay, I'll
thanks, bud. Yeah, I don't know. Rumble's such garbage. Sorry, guys on Rumble. Please join us on Odyssey if you can. If there's anyone that catches this on YouTube, our home channel is on Odyssey. It is far more free on free speech than all the other stuff we have to deal with YouTube's restrictions. Anyway, so what do you address in the chat? Return Chip says, hail to you too, buddy. Channel name. I'm here from Telegram. What the fuck is this? Where am I? Explain that, and yeah, appreciate you joining us, bud. Please share the stream. We're a fairly mature channel, but we're still pretty small, which is fine. You know, we're very happy with the family of viewers we got, but new receptive people are always welcome. Willing to entertain constructive questions if there are people that are on the opposite side, but like last week we had just really stupid trolls asking 2-3-year-old mean questions, so typically we delegate that to the chat. It's usually pretty brutal sometimes. Anyway, we'll leave it at that, but let's press on to the brief here. Let me get that started here. All right, guys. So yeah, this is the brief for start of July to the end of Sunday, and we'll get right into it. Again, for new people, we're covering the war in Ukraine. I read the brief. We covered the fronts in a clockwise order from Kharkiv all the way down to Kherson. Go over headlines, missile strikes, mobilization, rear activity, which would be partisan activity for the most part, and any articles I find which are worth mentioning. Anyway, okay, so the most stuff I've been able to cover the last week in the coverage or the review of everything, guys, is Kharkiv. Some good stuff happening for the Ukrainians, some other setbacks, unfortunately. I'll be using this map here for the most part to kind of talk a little about what these positional changes are talking about. So there's the Russian 2nd Spetsnaz Brigade, which moved along Zavarna Street, which is this main arterial right here. This has been a major point of contestation between the two forces. And what else? Sorry, got coffee burps there. And then the Ukrainian forces moved up, advanced along the street. So this has been a seesaw back and forth, but this is the latest stuff I could get from Kharkiv from ISW. So the geolocation is what they're showing, this little indentation right here. This is the Vovchansk aggregate plant. We've seen as a pocket for quite a long time. The maps that we've been seeing show as just a single square grid, basically, but there is some connection between the Russian forces and the Russians there in the plant, so it's interesting. They're able to move parallel and still maintain their foothold there. Russians have also, as we talked about, seized the plant there. Ukrainian forces advanced northwest of Helboke, which we'll get to the map. That's one of the villages to the left of the Kharkiv thrust by the Russians. So they've seized that while counterattacking the area, and available satellite imagery collected between July 3rd and 6th suggests that Ukrainian forces have counterattacked in the area between the states. Don't have any footage to really show you guys. It's worth mentioning, but we do have it in the comment footage here, second half of the show. Yeah, so geolocated footage published on the 30th of June shows Ukrainian forces firing a limited number of munitions at Russian positions and houses just north of the forest area of Zurovka in Sumy Oblast. So the Sumy is left of Kharkiv, if you look at your map, guys. There's been some increased sabotage and recon groups from Russia actually raiding into Ukraine. There was some footage of them using glide bombs, from what I could tell. It was published anyway, saying that they were striking those particular buildings. It was just like a kilometer over the border. The Russians tried to dig in or hide. It wasn't really clarified too well, but they got bomb dropped on them. So there you go. Ukrainian artillery units struck positions also near Zharivka. Those same groups been also crossing into Sotnitsky Kozachok, and Ukrainian forces are still trying to identify and repel those groups. This is also related to friend of the show, our National Corps friend. He was operating in that area too. He's fine. Yeah, I talked to him very recently. He's doing very well. Russian forces have likely concentrated in the area to generate additional ambiguity about which direction they could start an offensive operations in this direction in order to fix more Ukrainian units. That's ISW's assessment. Anyway, so they're believing it's a fixing action to draw more Ukrainian units away from Donetsk, essentially, because that's the main area of advancement for the Russians. There is an interesting breakdown. We'll get into the headlines here. I see we have... Hello, John. It's good to see you. Smoke Blunt gave us a $5 donation, bud. Good to see you. Nice to catch a live show. Thanks for the community you guys are building. Thank you all. I particularly appreciate, yeah, because we're trying to build a community that's putting out positive. They say positive vibes because I sound like a hippie, but I've heard
I don't know about you. I'm spreading pure hatred.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
maybe you're on different wavelengths, but
Probably, yeah.
that's the vibe I try to get with the show.
Sure. Yeah, no, trying to do good things, put out the right information, and make connections with people fighting for their homeland, you know? Anyway, what else we got here? Geolocated footage on the July 4th of all days shows Ukrainian forces repelling Russian reinforced platoon-sized mechanized assaults north of Kharkiv city, which is notable because it's the first visual confirmation that ISW has seen at least a platoon-sized Russian mechanized assault in that area in the open north of Kharkiv since mid-May. So they might be moving some armored assets out of the city out there. The Ukrainian forces destroyed 3 of 5 armored vehicles. I would have used that as a good video here, guys, but I thought this map provided more information to educate you guys, kind of keep you informed about what's happening in Vovchansk a bit more than, more burning NTLDs. We've seen quite a few of those. So yeah, an interesting criticism from the Russian info space. An often critical Russian blogger pointedly criticized the Russian military command for Russia's lack of progress in Vovchansk on July 5th. He claimed that Russian forces are far from achieving their objective of creating a 15-kilometer buffer zone, that Russian forces are struggling with coordination in the Vovchansk direction. He also said that Russian forces attacking within Vovchansk have suffered a third of the casualties that Russian forces suffered in their 4-month campaign to seize Avdiivka. Again, they've been in Vovchansk for about 2 months now. I think the numbers that they've talked about in Avdiivka were, 19,000 was the hard bottom from that guy before he killed himself or something like that. So you figure a third of, probably that would be about 6,000, 7,000 people. Anyway, Russian and Ukrainian sources have offered various figures for Russian casualties in the Avdiivka offensive against unknown. It is unclear what information he's using. Nonetheless, no blogger suggesting Russian forces have suffered significant casualties in this effort. He also placed responsibility for the progress of the failure on the Russian forces on General Alexander Lapin again. So we should all know his name by now. I think he was also in charge of the Russian grouping of forces from the Western Military District before he was reformed the Moscow Military District in the Kharkiv counteroffensive in 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that's the guy. He just happens to be finding work somehow. So anyway, what else we got here? So yeah, so you can see the progress here, guys. The blue is confirmed geolocated. It says claimed. A lot of the time, ISW goes pretty hard on when they can geolocate. You see these points of reference here, geolocated footage of the 4th and 5th. 5th right here, 4th right here. The yellow are claimed, and we know how much the Russians claim they advance all the time. So it's good to say it's easy to say that the red is probably where they're at and blue is where the Ukrainians are at. So what was particularly interesting about this though is just how, like, with the second Spetsnaz advancing down this street right here, and then the confirmation of the Ukrainians moving along the street counterattacking. It's a very fluid situation. So to say this is where the lines are at any day is hyperbole, to say the least. But it is interesting to note just how amorphic the fighting is within these streets right here. It's a town of 13,000 people with a pre-war population, and it's just being fought over. It's amazing how it's a tight box, and it's just interesting how it's been evolving. But Nick's Sparrow Ghost says, I do not like the Russians, but your denial of what you took part in before starting the drama. Oh goodness, is this the?
Oh god,
is this the guy?
It's the guy.
Oh, that's the guy.
Continue on. Yeah.
Okay. Chat and engage the autistic guy if you can. Anyway.
Fucking life.
For new people, we also have our resident Spurg. So that is him. He does find nom de plumes every once in a while to switch up his name. So.
Yeah, it's like the summer, so that's when he like wakes up from his hibernation and decides to be a fucking nuisance in our chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna close down the chat here to show you this video here. So,
okay,
at least on the screen here. Back to okay, sorry. Too many windows. Okay. So yeah, some more positional changes. Some actually favorable for Ukraine. Ukrainian forces regained lost positions near Kremenna, while Russian forces recently advanced near Kremenna amid continuing fighting along the Kupiansk-Spatove-Kremenna line on July 1st. Ukrainian forces regained, again, more positions in forest areas south of Kremenna and east of Terny. Russian bloggers themselves claimed that Ukrainian forces advanced 800 meters near Terny and about 1 kilometer into Serebryansk forest. And the geolocated footage shows that Ukrainian forces recently marginally advanced southeast to Novy Horivka. As you can see, this is from 3rd Assault. It seems like they've broken up their battalions into several groupings. Supposedly, I've seen footage of 3rd Assault in the Vovchansk area. Then we also have these guys in the Serebryansk Terny area. So they're not operating as a whole brigade. Interesting just to note that they broke up their battalions into different theaters. So this video right here is from July 2nd. It shows Ukrainian forces moving marginally southeast of Novy Horivka. It's about a minute. Oh, sorry, this is a 13-minute video. So we'll scrub it if we have to along here a little bit, guys. But hope you enjoy.
Тут за сутки проживаєш, те, що і за місяці не проживаєш на гражданці.
Дайте интервью, як вам вот этот есть?
Почистил автомат, отбили накат. Пошел! Слышим крики, полумертвых.
Слушай, мы туда 3 гранаты закинули.
І він певно живий?
Царапался уже весь, только покрасил. Врываемся туда и ну что, Адидас, брат? Бог з нами. Поїхали. Перша група виходить.
Быстрее забегай. Быстрее забегай. Давай, проходи. Рядом, рядом. Гранату туда ебашь. Цинку. Давайся, пиздар! На! Спытайся, выйти, сука. Ты закидываешь гранату? Граната! Сдавайся, долбоёб! Сюда, Адидас! Гранаты! Як я його не заїбасив! Сука! Там, блядь! Пізда, як я його не заїбасив! 2 метри! Він гер! Кому піде, Вов, блядь, 2 метри від нас! Присядь! Хуяриш, во, бліндаж, блядь, під низом, сука, во! Через 2 метри від нас! Следующий укоп. Каже, свої, блядь, до мене, свої, блядь, підам, блядь. Наш.
Hear that those Russian clusters going off.
Є магазини, давай. Пусті. Повні давай. А, є, на. Це БК точно? Ти мені дай повний, я набрав ще. Не попав, він прогнувся. Дивись, десь звідти снайпер хуярить.
Туди далі рухаємося. Що? Плюс.
Exactly, John. You never have enough ammunition.
Вернувся.
I appreciate them blurring out the dead bodies. It's just not necessary to see all the time.
Налево мы не дочистую, и направо тоже. Давай налево сейчас. Туда гранату прокинь, да.
Я не могу, влево, вправо.
Влево.
Saturating
Граната!
clusters. Anyway.
Yeah.
Saw most
Я
of this
пустый,
first time.
перезарядка.
So good.
Блядь.
Да. Какой? На начале? Нет.
Швидше, братан. Не затримуйся так. Я контролирую цей левый проходчик. Сука! Тут тротил, блядь, с цим.
BB. Yeah, FPG'шка.
Дальше, двигайся.
Do you move or do you stay still?
Давай дальше двигайся, мы в опасной
That's a
зоне.
very shallow trench too.
Yeah,
so
that's
not a whole lot of room.
yeah. It's not even up to your dick level, really.
FPV-шка!
Все, тут нас и FPV-шка не видите, нормально будет.
А?
И FPV не видите,
It's interesting. It's FPV'шka, not just FPV. No, anyway.
Падай туда. Мы пока закрепили тут.
Сейчас. Чисто.
Не в тупику, скажешь,
Сейчас. Ми дійшли з скандалом до правого тупіка. Тут закріпились. Як прийняв?
Yeah, it is nuts, John. It's just the best these Russian trenches are in all the time.
Нігер найс, чув снайпера роботу. Тут велика стрілкотня йде.
The clean ones you've seen are the newly constructed ones they ever build.
Братан! Да что у тебя?
I always said, no.
Спокойно, турникет. Турникет где?
Есть, вот.
Вижу.
Блять.
Братан, нормально. Что-то еще болит, кроме руки?
Нога.
Нога?
Ага.
Где второй турникет?
Вот здесь вот.
Где?
Вот. Вот.
Нет, он слепотил, где первый? Первый.
Вот.
Плюс.
For those that just joined us, we have a Azov soldier
Я не знаю, вроде
shrapnel from an FPV drone.
Вроде нормально.
Точно?
Да. Я просто лег именно боком, именно рукой и ногой к гранате.
Состояние стабильное. Кровотечение остановлено.
Сука.
2 турникета всего?
4. 5 даже, 1 еще в аптечке. Я постараюсь сам доскакать. Ну типа с помощью. Сука. А тяжело, блядь, двигаться даже с тампонадой.
Cut open his sleeve there.
Ти рухаєшся зараз з Даяною на Педро. Заходите, забираєте 300-х.
Забираємо чи забирає він?
Забирай він. Ти залишаєшся там.
Oh, this is the same. Oh, this video right here we've seen.
І собі БК.
I recognize the symbol on her left hand. It's the wolf's angle. If you look at her left hand, she's waiting for the camera. See,
Okay.
That's the telltale identification point.
Все,
You've
взяла
seen
воду
this
і
video right
цинк.
here. It was the extended version of what we saw last week. Escaped over this part when I was scrubbing it.
Все, побежали.
Okay, I'll delete that from the prep.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I think there was something about female combat medic in there.
Що, нам можна вже йти?
Yeah.
А?
Those are typically Sahid drones, John. Those are bigger with a much larger warhead. Turn this down a little bit.
Охуєнно, ну хоча б 1 плюс.
Latest reports I could see again because Rohan Consulting hasn't been putting out, graphics about how many drone strikes have been put out every week by Russia. It's been hard for me to track. Every once in a while, I still be able to find something, but last reports is that Russia's actually decreased the amount of Sahid drones. But last week there was a warehouse of about 60-90 Sahid drones that was struck and destroyed by the Ukrainians, which is always good. But they're even secondary means of missile delivery or drone delivery, or I guess it'd be area delivery, the best way to address that. But yeah, they've come up with what would be advanced enough strike packages to do what they did in Kyiv today, which is circumventing a lot of the air defenses that Ukraine has, also due to the lack of interceptors they have. They need 400 missiles a month, it sounds like, right now. Ukrainians do anyway. Need 400.
Где 300-е? Сзади. Открываем.
Що, я зроблю?
Даяна поможе.
Все равно штанішки підуть по пизді.
Да, де вона? О, і одна зверху, бачиш?
Дайте.
Мала ховай.
Тільки ховайся, блядь.
Давай, маленький, давай. Давай, Гарик, я крию.
Explosive.
Всі цілі.
Да.
Все. Працюємо. Поки немає чим заряджатись, то я піду до 300.
Братуха, не треба сюди дивитися, блядь. Дивись туди, поки.
Повернися. Перевірю.
Yeah, his leg's pretty messed up, guys. The original video.
Легенда, того кровотечі нема, все заєбісь.
Major penetration there was up high.
По ним стріляють. Ебать, тут просто зоопарк нахуй літаючий, просто пиздец. Які хочеш FPV.
Це наші працювали?
Да.
Well, that looks like it was like their drone hitting Russia.
Це наші?
Які хочеш FPV.
Is that?
Yeah,
that's their battalion mark, and then they're hitting right above their friendlies.
Це наші працювали?
Да.
What's that, 1st Battalion?
I think so. Yeah, I forgot how the mark was. I think 3rd has the wolf in it. But yeah.
Давай попробуем добыть.
Пошли.
Сейчас убьем нахуй.
Oh shit. They're sharing the same trench.
Тут нету никого. Вони сібалися тут.
Убил, блядь, убил!
Хорош. Заебашил?
Заебашил, живой был. Откат, давай. Пока дым, давай.
Russians also like to pre-designate their own trench lines when they get taken, so they'll drop mortar on their own trenches right after they do get taken. So they got to get out of that kill box.
Светили!
Сука.
Прийняв, 2 літера відкатується по кущам. Так, ліпаки, треба передню частину окопу взяти, щоб підери до вас звідти не запригували.
Може, їбать, якийсь недобиток остався.
Чисто.
Чисто?
Да.
Все, це конець?
Да. Кібер. Окоп зачищений.
That's the wounded gentleman.
Тобі уїбало. Пуля.
Выбачь.
Пуля.
А, граната. Так, запись идет. Я, ебать, благополучно затрехсотился.
Венгер на связи, кто вызывает?
Любимые побратимы. В камере наполовину плохо, короче. В общем, как-то так, подписчики.
You guys go. That's what's happening in Luhansk right every day. Alright, more developments happening in this area, guys. Ukrainian spokesman for a brigade operating in that same direction stated that Russian forces are constantly attacking small infantry assaults in the Borova, which is west of Sleptove, periodically with armored vehicles and non-lethal chemical weapons. Again, like CS gas and other riot control agents. Geolocated footage in that area also indicates that Russian forces marginally advanced east of Peshane during a roughly platoon-sized assault. And the last bit there is that Ukrainian military observers stated that Russian forces were unable to advance further during that same assault due to mechanized assault. Due to the losses and the dense minefields in the area. All right, so onto the Donetsk front, guys. This has been the main area of Russian success the last few months, but I would venture to guess it seems to be that they're might be culminating due to the fact of the, how to put it, there's been a new phenomenon. We've seen a few times of the motorbike charge across the field. There's a lot to unpack from that. Is like where are their, AFVs? What is it just too slow? Are they being pressed so hard from above to just charge on motorbikes now? It's good that, again, coming just from an objective point of view, that if they're going to use motorbikes, they can go over those tank mines, right? Because they're too light, and it's just really just nothing more than the weight of a person. But again, anti-personnel mines will still fuck you up. Yeah. Again, the attrition rate on these things would obviously be very high because it's unprotected, open vehicles, but that's something we've been seeing, and just because of the lack of mechanized assaults that have been decreasing, it seems like in this area, it seems to be that they are coming at the end of what would be their available armored assets, possibly in this area. So some updated numbers in the Russian mobilization about the number of tanks they have. But positional changes are typically in the Russian favor in this area. Russians advanced within Sokol, northeast of Novolik-Sendrivka, south of Voskod, and north of Karlivka. They also seized the micro-rayon, the Kenal micro-rayon, which is in the east of Chasiv Yar. I do have a map of that later on the notes, guys. I'll show you. Russians have also advanced over 1 kilometer within the previously confirmed Russian front line of their own troops towards the eastern outskirts of Druzhba, which is east of Toretsk. And Russian forces also advanced about 1.8 kilometers along the Kalnove Street towards the eastern outskirts of the Pivniche Druzhba area, also east of Torsk. Touretsk, whatever you want to call it. Again, lastly, Russian forces advanced along the academic Korolev Street within central Krasnodarivka, and also advanced into southwestern New York. The story behind that I got from one of these guys I watched is that originally this was named New York because there were 100 American settlers that moved into that area. I would probably venture to guess there is this, but that's just my guess. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, geolocated footage in this area is from the 3rd. It shows Ukrainian forces assaulting Russian positions in a windbreak south of Klishchivka. This is from the 93rd.
Гранаты не забывайте. Горец. Кроешь дорогу.
I like the way they move. They're communicating, talking. But,
Сиди тут, я пойду с ним.
They're advancing on a bunker right in this tree line right here. To the left here is a trench line too. They're trying to lock it down basically.
Шмаля.
Guy pulls back. I'm covering fire from his friends. Pretty good move. Just an M4 with iron sights too. First person here.
Гранату давай. Гранаты есть. Шмід, на прийом, це Кеша. У нас перша нора горить, друга нора з жмурами.
Some cool guy shit.
Yeah, right. I do just want to go back a little bit. So yeah, it's pretty much the end of it. I do want to see if we can identify the grenade who got tossed there.
That's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's just because I saw that Valkyrie video recently where he was talking about those little Soviet grenades.
Гранаты есть.
Almost, I mean, it seems cylindrical. Top right there. Let's go back one second. Oh, actually, get right on the spot there. That's interesting. So it's not your typical looking grenade. I have no idea what that is. I haven't seen anything like that. It's fairly long. Interesting. But
yeah, that is weird. It looks like a like a 25 millimeter Bushmaster round or something.
Yeah,
because it's gonna look like a grenade.
Yeah, that's your.
Except for the little like clip thing on the side.
That's your safety right there, really.
Yeah.
Get your spoon up here, obviously, but yeah, I have no idea what that is.
I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, please. Yeah, I'd love to show that in the chat. Anyway, that's your video from the Donetsk front, guys. Some other developments of note here is that geolocated footage shows on the 30th of June that Ukrainian forces repelled roughly company-sized Russian mechanized assault south of Novomikhailivka, striking 7 Russian armored vehicles. Russian forces are conducting mechanized assaults near Chasiv Yar and using small groups of up to 5 soldiers to break through the Novi and Canal micro-rayons, which we'll show again on the map later. Yeah, because last week I think we talked about how they were probing with smaller groups without mechanized forces, so they switched over to mechanized assaults again this last week. And the Ukrainian GUR reported that Ukrainian forces struck a Russian Zytel electronic warfare system near Novohulansk and a Russian logistics center near Debaltseve, where Russian forces stored tanks and ammunition on July 6th. Yeah, I wasn't able to find any footage of those strikes, unfortunately. All right, last front here, guys, is the Kherson Zaporizhzhia front. Been pretty quiet the last few weeks. Russian and Ukrainian forces are continuing to fight near the Antonovsky Railway Bridge north of Oleshki, which is, I haven't heard any reports from that in quite some time, so interesting to know. Footage here is from the Russian occupation minister there from Zaporizhzhia, Vladimir Rogov, or Rogov the retard, as we used to call him. He was a bit more active on Telegram. He claimed the Ukrainian forces launched 5 HIMARS rockets against Melitopol, and Russian forces intercepted all the rockets. But again, debris fell on the city, and that's what caused the fire, not the rockets themselves. This is the footage he posted on Telegram. Looks like a strike to me, but, you know, Rogov just likes to lie through his teeth, as usual.
Yeah.
Anyway. Developments in this area, guy, are a few. Russian forces claim that they're pushing Ukrainian forces out of positions near Machka, which is on the river there. But the situation is difficult due to the open terrain and heavy Ukrainian drones and remote mining. Russian sources claim that Russian soldiers in Zaporizhzhia area are complaining about inefficient electronic warfare. Since Ukrainian forces are using different frequencies for their drones, in case of adaptation. This was the interesting part. And because Russian EW systems are overheating in the summer heat, which I find interesting to be an inadequate design in their EW. You'd think that they'd be built for the environment in which they basically live in, right? But their EW systems might be being overused, not being maintained correctly, and might be just overheating too. Just interesting to note. So anyway. Russian forces struggled to conduct effective counter-battery fire in the Kherson direction because the east bank's elevation is lower than that on the right bank where the Ukrainians are at. And, and Ukrainian artillery has longer ranges than Russian artillery. They're probably using those M777s. And the SVU and Ukrainian forces reportedly struck a Russian Nebo SVU long-range radar detection system that was 70 kilometers from the front line in that same area. The Ukrainian spokesman for the Ukrainian brigade in the same area in Zaporizhzhia stayed on the 5th. Russian forces are increasingly using small assault groups of 2 to 3 personnel and rarely even field squad-sized groups. This is because of recon fire complex in the area, and Russian assault groups are attempting to find weak spots and are essentially conducting recon and force operations instead of assaults. What did I want to say about this? I forgot. Anyway. Related to these electronic warfare strikes and radar strikes, they seem to be what we call theater preparation strikes, basically. Seems like they're shaping operations, right? I'm just interested to see how well these go because they're really targeting Russian electronic warfare systems, SAM sites, stuff like that. It's obviously in preparation for F-16s, which hopefully with Western weapons will be able to strike, the old ammo dumps, HQ units, bunkers, stuff like that. The old stuff we used to see way back when HIMARS rolled onto the scene. So that does it for the fronts, guys. The only thing really to talk about missiles, aside from I didn't put in the missile section here because that literally happened when I was trying to decide, was the missile strike happened today. But prior to that, Zelensky reported that Russian forces launched over 600 glide bombs, 60 Shahed drones, and 40 missiles of various types against targets in Ukraine between the 29th of June and 5th of July. So it gives you a rough picture of what's being dealt with there. Yeah. Okay, so for the title of the show, guys, was Russian Rejection. Orban, to his credit or not, I'd probably say not, but he's kind of a sad-looking guy sometimes. He went to go visit Kyiv this last week, and then he went over to Moscow. Essentially, he was calling for a time to plan a ceasefire at some appointed date. Zelensky said we can't do that because we're still fighting, and Putin just said, basically, go fuck yourself. Like we reject any idea of any sort of ceasefire because that would help out the Ukrainians, etc., etc. But we'll get into the details of this whole trip in the last week here. Orban likely used his unannounced visit to Kyiv on the 2nd to posture himself as a peacemaker following Hungary's, if some people don't like the way I pronounce that, Hungary, I say Hungary because it's Hungarian army, anyway, Hungary's, essentially the EU Council presidency on July 1st, but Orban's efforts are very unlikely to bring any robust peace to Ukraine. So what the European Council presidency is, it's actually a triumvirate of 3 different countries that have it's a rotating chair of 18 months that's given out to various countries. Right now it's Hungary and Spain, and I forgot the other country. but these countries are the presidential council. And Orban, using that clout of his current position for his country, is going around using this as a foreign envoy, basically, for the EU. So that's why it's important.
Okay.
He's basically trying to represent the EU, is what he's trying to use that for. But again, the EU basically said, no, you don't represent us, etc., etc. So Orban met with Zelensky in Kyiv and gave a readout that emphasized Zelensky specifically to ask him to reconsider the time-bound ceasefire and to speed up the peace of negotiations. They also met on bilateral issues like infrastructure, energy, and how to bring a just domestic peace. And there was also talk about opening up a Ukrainian culture and language school in Hungary. So that's cool. So they are actually ameliorating those problems that were, in the beginning of the war. People were talking about these ethnic antagonisms that Russia was trying to exploit. So it seems like they're respecting each other's ethnic minorities in each other's country. So that's pretty good. Anyway, so that was big zilch in Kyiv. So they talked about normal issues, seemed okay. The ceasefire, no. So then he flew over to Moscow on July 5th. And Putin used the meeting basically to oppose the negotiated ceasefire altogether and express his commitment to pursuing a final end to the war that would achieve his goal of destroying Ukraine's statehood. Putin met with Orban in Moscow and reportedly discussed that same ceasefire. And he explicitly rejected Russian participation in any meaningful negotiations on a ceasefire agreement on July 4th in a departure from his usual feigned interest in negotiations. And Putin notably outright rejected any negotiated ceasefire in a press conference with Orban on July 5th. He stated that an agreement between Russia and Ukraine should not result in a temporary ceasefire, since this would allow Ukraine to regroup and rearm, that Russia instead favors a complete and final end to the conflict. Putin is currently unwilling to accept anything else. That this is just a ISW opinion, basically. But it is true that Putin wants the total destruction of Ukraine's statehood. So we've seen that plenty of times.
Yes.
A couple more things here, guys. Putin is demanding both the surrender of a significant portion of Ukraine's territory and people to Russian occupation and Ukrainian capitulation ahead of any negotiations. He called for the complete Ukrainian withdrawal from the Donbass and Novorossiya, which is a prerequisite for ending the war. Basically, this is the administrative borders of Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk, which would give him Kherson back, which he lost, and Zaporizhzhia. Sorry, I get the emperor mixed up with Zaporizhzia. So
including the part of the oblast he hasn't even captured yet.
Exactly.
The power plant.
Yeah, exactly. So that would give up again, like you're talking about, the nuclear power plant, which was built. The consensus was built 2 weeks ago in Switzerland, with so many, close to 80 countries that said no, this is Ukrainian energy. No, they should get it back anyway. Anyway, so some other stuff from ISW. The imagined borders of Novorossiya are disputed among Russian ultranationalists, however, and Putin and the Kremlin have routinely indicated that the hold aims to territorial conquest beyond those administrative borders. The Ukrainian, he also invoked concerns of Ukrainian military reconstitution, which, demilitarizing Ukraine seems to be the opposite of what's happening, even by his own words now. And the expansion of Ukrainian military during a potential ceasefire to call for Ukraine's irreversible demilitarization as a prerequisite for 2 negotiations. And he called on Ukraine's demilitarization to abandon its ability to resist Russian aggression, because he said he wanted like 80,000 troops in Ukraine earlier. So he's kind of falling back his old talking points. This is just interesting in light of what happened in Switzerland. And then he was touring around North Korea and Vietnam, stuff like that. So now he's gone to like this maximalist rhetoric again. Typically, he feels like he's talking to a Western audience, but now he's talking about just annexing most of East and Southern Ukraine. So I don't know what that really means, if he's increasingly confident or if he feels that it needs to be pressed because he's feeling weaker. I don't know. It's just interesting. Go ahead. It's good. We have the commentary there, Alex.
No, I was just saying it's kind of a little bit of I know it's like split personality, because I remember I believe it was the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, or however you say it, was talking about how he was kind of holding his palms open and saying, okay, maybe we can work on negotiations. And it was actually interesting because Putin coming to the table to the EU to do that, but now like what's it 3 weeks later now he's saying like, okay, meet our demands plus some and completely demilitarize the country. It's like that's not a serious offer anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
like,
I think
and I'm not saying the first one wasn't serious, at least in his mind, but it's just now it's like, dude, trust me, like I'm not going to do anything, bro. Like just hand over your phone. Like I'm not going to like throw it over the cliff. It's like why? Like yeah. So I don't know like what kind of image he's trying to project. This is like him trying to shore up an image of strength to the Russian people, and this is not to be taken seriously by the international community. I don't know. But, yeah, it's just
it seems like
your rhetoric straight.
Yeah, it seems like rhetorically this is meant to be a non-starter, which is odd because feigning interest in negotiations is part of their narrative toward the West, which is propped up by, you know, Russia's inevitable victory. Why don't they just talk? Because we're not trying to kill you. Da, 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 da. But then you also see the parallel strike on the Children's Hospital just today. Maybe that's part of the change in rhetoric and mindset. I don't know. Because we did see them strike the Mariupol maternity ward, you know, during the war, during the early part of the war, right? And this explicit targeting of children, and it wasn't the strike in like broad daylight. I think it was like 1 p.m., right? It was meant to be seen by people. Because their strikes are typically during night, like 99% of the time from what I can tell. Striking a children's hospital in broad daylight during lunchtime, that's meant to be a gesture and a call to violence and a spectacle of violence is what they usually call, right? And then this rhetoric combined on, what was it, July 5th and 4th is when we was talking about that just 3-4 days ago. Maybe there's something going on here. We are going to see a pattern of it eventually. I don't know. These are just to get data points. It's just interesting to note. Major departure from rhetoric, an increase in his demands rhetorically, and then a blood slaughter of children. You know, like, okay, where are you going with this, bud? So anyway, anyway, so yeah, he was at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or the SCO, in Astana, Kazakhstan on July 4th. He was, again, just reiterating his points about the ceasefire and demilitarizing Ukraine's military and stuff like that as a precondition for any ceasefire agreement. He repeatedly portrayed the West as he envisioned a negotiating partner in a ceasefire agreement in order to prompt Western concessions on Ukrainian sovereignty, but he notably dismissed all intermediary parties, which is interesting, right? So we've seen Turkey, China, the UAE, what was it? The other one there, not Bahrain.
Qatar.
Yeah, I think it's Qatar. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, there's this little minor, small island, Arab nations out there, acting as mediators for POW exchanges and stuff like that. Right? They were probably hoping themselves to be like trusted mediators further in this, but now it seems like Putin is also saying, nope, we're just going to talk straight to Ukraine, straight to the United States and the EU. Right? So there's not going to be this intermediary exchange anymore, which is interesting because even China themselves was trying to posture themselves to that too for a while. Putin has now labeled all Ukrainian governing institutions as illegitimate and suitable for negotiation. Has dismissed the idea of third parties in negotiations, and he highlighted his demand for Ukraine's demilitarization. He keeps talking about that. So, well, that's the whole point of the Russian rejection title for the show, guys. So following up still on the strikes that happened in southern Russia. So this is the Chechen connection. I get my joke there with the Russian, well, with the old French connection, but Chechen anyway. Bad joke. I had to explain the joke to make it laugh, right? But it's not a very good joke. But so if Nick Jelby does see this, I would like to let you know, bud. I'm going to try to write a paper Wednesday if I can. On what I've done. I've done a little bit more research into Russian foreign policy, their outreach to the global south, and how Kadyrov, Chechens, the MMA, Dagestani fighters like Khabib, Nurmagomedov, sorry, work together to build these MMA clubs in Paris and the West, and how that affects like active clubs in Paris, actually. I think this is a fairly relevant point of politics going on at a very street level that involves the UFC and stuff like this. It's a very complicated web, and I think it's something we need to actually understand and have someone articulate. So I'm going to try to do that as best as I can in this paper and submit to Radical Dev sometime in the near future. Anyway, so I'll give you a little taste here, guys, in the ongoing parts I've been seeing here. Russian authorities appear to be publicly fixating on crackdowns against fight clubs and restricting the niqab to signal that Russian authorities are adequately combating terrorist threats in the North Caucasus instead of addressing systemic issues of Islamic extremism in the region. On the 28th, security forces of the Russian Federation searched a mixed martial arts sports club with links to former Russian MMA fighter Khabib Nurmagomedov in Dagestan. Sorry, yeah, he does look like a monkey there with his cheeks and ears. Since there was an attacker involved on the June 23rd terrorist attacks that reportedly trained at the sports club. They've denied any connection, but it sounds like there was actually a fairly intimate relationship with them in the terrorist attacks, guys there. Oh, the eyes, the ears, that's what you call cauliflower ear. That's what you get when...
It's like fluid, right?
Yeah, it's you bust the cartilage in your ear because typically you get punched or wrestled, right? And then the fluid in your ear fills in the part of your cartilage that was broken, basically. So that's what happens. So it's a wrestling fighting injury. Russian outlet RPK reported that the Russian Federal Tax Service, so they use their own IRS against people they want to arrest, they seized his bank accounts due to a debt of nearly over $3 million. Russian media reported on the 2nd that Russian law enforcement also detained a former coach of the Russian national youth wrestling team in a terrorism case, so probably related to these terrorist attacks. There's reported widespread participation of Dagestan youth in these MMA fight clubs, which mill bloggers claim encourage Islamist ideology, probably the same Wahhabists. So it's interesting how Kadyrov is actually using this as a diplomatic outreach to the global south. And we've also seen an increase in particularly Saudi Arabia, because I've seen a few of their fights. They actually had the Usyk fight actually was in Saudi Arabia, right? So it goes both ways, where Russia's trying to outreach the global south here, making sure we're still... Okay, looks like we're still up on things here. Let's make sure we're fine, because we didn't make a death on.
I'm down on Odyssey.
Okay, let me check here real quick.
It says we're not live.
Check the dashboard.
But Rumble looks okay.
Yeah, okay. It looks like we're fine. Sorry, guys, just had to double check everything. I'm just checking all my technical things on my end. Still says we're still streaming, so
okay, we're good. Yep, okay. I'm seeing it too.
Cool. Yeah. Good to see you, Ayamoda. Anyway, sorry. Back to what I was talking about there. My train of thought. So, due to how to put it, the term that was being used by a lot of academics doing research into this subject are calling it sports nationalism. Like, it's just such a nerd, liberal way of putting it, right? Like they don't really understand the subject they're studying. But guys like us that have been involved in fights and military and stuff like that, we can kind of understand the appeal and how it all works together. But the way they're articulating is that the sports nationalism is being used as a way for strongmen or authoritarians to gloss over their public image, right? Or their human rights abuses is always what they're talking about, right? Anyway, so with Saudi Arabia doing their thing, boosting their public image, and also trying to basically diversify their economy away from oil, they're trying to create a sports industry in Saudi Arabia, right? So they're sponsoring all these fights now. And the way that's working is that they're also cross-pollinating their Wahhabists into Russia. And we saw this guy with the Dagestani fight, the terrorist fighters, right? And that's left Russia susceptible to this infiltration by the Wahhabists, I would imagine, right? And I'm just kind of seeing this through the gaps in some of these articles I'm seeing, right? Because we saw these guys were going to a Wahhabist imam and his mosque. They attacked a synagogue and Orthodox church where they had 40 Orthodox hostages. Like these are very overt, like, fuck you, other religion attacks. And that's because of the Wahhabist roots that these guys were having this pollination basically grow in their mindset. And because of these MMA clubs, they're also built and used for the Chechen diaspora in the West. So you can imagine a lot of these Dagestanis, Chechens that are living in the West are getting inculcated with the same ideology that happened with the attacks in Derbent and Makhachkala is the other town. Anyway, down near the Caspian Sea there. Anyway, I forgot the name of it. That for me is very worrying because if they're propping up these MMA fight clubs, they're an effective recruiting tool. They cultivate a identity, a tribe, all these things, right? But come to find out, obviously that the Chechens have their own native fight culture, and using this as a conduit for further training, it's worrying that it's becoming much more refined too. And they make tons of money doing this though. Like they only need a handful of fighters to win, a couple belts, right? And they get like tens of millions every fight. All that money is being pumped back into Chechnya, back into their gyms, back into all these students that are being trained in these things, right? So it builds momentum. And this is going to become a growing problem probably for Russia in the future, though, if these fighters continue to be so successful with Dana White's complicity, because he is complicit in this, though, too, because he's brought in these Russian fighters. All they need to do is really just train outside of Russia, and then they can just say, well, I'm not fighting for Russia if they have to be sanctioned, right? Anyway, because the Eagle MMA Club, I think, was one of them that was sanctioned. Well, through this recently when it was sanctioned packages, though. Anyway, it's I know it's amazingly complex, guys. I'm going over a lot of minor little details, but these little data points build up to a picture of where we're seeing these Wahhabist Chechens and Dagestanis in Paris, in Germany, and probably in parts in the West where there's Chechens. If there's a Muslim fight club, keep an eye out. There might be some of these actual Wahhabist terrorists that are what they did to fuck up southern Russia. Don't know. You never know.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a Law and Order episode about these guys.
Right. Yeah. I mean, building an army. Like, fuck sakes, dude.
Yeah. It's just funny.
These guys actually go kinetic.
These active clubs are like really anti-gun and like anti-militia imagery. And these guys are probably going to be the complete opposite, where they're an MMA fight club, but they're actually legitimately forming militias and terrorist cell groups to conduct organized attacks.
Yes, like they just did. Stuff. Yeah. Thanks, man. Anyway, so that's
funny how that works, but
yeah. Anyway, fucking liberals, so fucking blind. Anyway, so along with MMA clubs, the Russian authorities are also cracking down against niqabs, garment worn against Muslim women to cover their entire body and face. Basically, the Afghan ninja suit, what we used to call it. Anyway, which they have framed as symbolic of Islamic extremism. The Russian Investigative Committee voiced indirect support for the banning of niqabs, but Dagestan head Sergei Milikov stated that he's personally against the practice. The Muftiyat of Dagestan, or the Mufti, which was expected to issue a fatwa, which is a legal ruling by Islamic law and jurists, against wearing the niqab, stated on the 2nd that he could not find sufficient grounds for a general ban of the niqab, but that local and temporary bans are permitted for security reasons. So he can't even justify it when he's pressured. So anyway, again, some more stuff. Russian ultranationalists were complaining about this, though, rightly so in this case, I would say. But again, what else do we also have? Residents of Sergo-Kala, Dagestan, who reportedly knew some of the assailants on the 23rd attack. In a July 1st article said that all the attackers attended a Wahhabi mosque, as I talked about, whose imam has not been approved by the Muftiyat of Dagestan. Anyway. Why they always talk about like the niqabs? It's just a form of control, I guess. I have to say it like feminist, but it's so weird that you have to like cover your women all the time. It's just fucking weird.
Because it's that fucking ugly.
Well, yeah. I mean, we joke about that though, but like to me, it's like, how to put it. I'm gonna get 30,000 galaxy brain here for just a minute though, but like it's a rejection of beauty, right? Because they fail. I always sound like. But just bear with me, guys. They can't control their own impulses, right? Because they have to have this very tight, strict religious law conducting their sexual behavior, their courtship, how they deal with relationships between their family and women. It's like the Quran is a fucking rule, a handbook for life, basically, right? It's what it really is. The problem is that when you take it, from to a metaphysical look at things, in my opinion, just based on my travels in the Middle East, like they have no conception of what beauty is. Like beauty for them is no icons of your prophet, just the closeness of the individual to Allah. This whole thing, like you have to be just this pure like soul, in front of God before judgment. But with the veil as an extension of that, to decrease temptations. The same thing with the Puritans in Massachusetts, I have to say. Without the accepting of the beauty of the woman, how can you really find beauty in life, right? Because I honestly believe most men understand that a beautiful woman that's good, wholesome, honest, loyal, is the first thing they really can say is beauty in their life, right? But by veiling their women like this, it's a fundamental rejection of that, right? And I think that's a major counterpoint between us and Muslim cultures. And by doing that, in a sense, I hate to say it. Anyway, I'll go down a rabbit hole here, doesn't really matter. But this is an extension of just the rejection of beauty. And when the West, a healthy West, has an appreciation for beauty, like, what was that English guy? I'm trying to look his name up in my bookcase right here. He died recently. He was an architecture guy. Anyway, he was talking about just beauty in buildings and stuff like that, though. Beauty is a necessary thing for everyone to have a healthy life, though. And these guys are not healthy. But sorry, I felt like I had something more important to say. Anyway, talking about beauty and politics, anyway.
No, you're just pointing out that sub-IQ savages are inherently anti-human in nature. And that checks out.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you for bailing me there. Anyway, another interesting point is that several Russian State Duma deputies also proposed a bill that would exclude a significant number of ethnicities from Russia's Compatriots Abroad Resettlement Program. This was introduced a little bit ago. This was basically to repopulate Russia with compatriots that were living in former Soviet countries or countries that spoke some Russian, stuff like that, right? The two deputies, Just Russia Party member, Deputy Dmitry Kuznetsov, and Communist Party member, Deputy Mikhail Medvedev, the author of the bill, which would exclude countries from the former Soviet Union, because they say that 50 to 70% of these applicants come from Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and Armenia, and claim that several generations of citizens of post-Soviet countries after the collapse have grown up with their own country's traditional moral and cultural values, which makes sense. But the reason why I want to put this in here, guys, is because it's important to track the manpower pools that Russia is constricting now, right? Them granting citizenship to Africans, Sri Lankans, Indians. Hell, I mean, like, part of the conversation Modi was going to have with Putin when he visits, I think just today or yesterday, was actually to, repatriate the Indians that are conscripted into the Russian military back to India. I'll let you know if I find a word about that. But by them constricting their manpower pools abroad, that's going to force them to either mobilize again in Russia, which is going to have disastrous political consequences, but also it's going to have battlefield effects of lesser manning in their units, right? So by again, these are healthy impulses for anyone to say, well, we don't want these foreigners here. But the way Russia's fighting this war is that they're using foreigners by a large part. And then cutting these manpower pools off is going to cut that flow off. And that's going to give Ukraine a larger advantage in manpower over time. So this is a long-term effect I'm looking at. And this might happen, it might not. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Anyway. So it does it with the Chechen connection there. The Donetsk play. So this is another map I could find that was going to show the whole front. That's really where Russia's trying to advance. To give you a quick overlook here, guys, this is Severe Spiern. Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar is right here, right within that circle right there. Toretsk is the major thrust a lot of people are keeping the focus on. And the Akheratine thrust, which is northwest of Avdiivka here, right? So the play is that they believe the Russians are trying to push to Toretsk, whatever you want to call it, and then also Chasiv Yar to get to Konstantinivka, which is a major node for this highway right here. There's also another one that runs roughly west-east. And then the fortress cities of Ukraine are Slovyansk, Kramatorsk, and Konstantinivka. These are the backstop of the Ukrainian defenses in the Donetsk region, basically. Donbass region, sorry. If they could get into these cities, then it's going to be much more harder for the Ukrainians to defend. So that's why these defenses in Chasiv Yar, Toretsk, keep saying that anyway, and what was around Avdiivka are so important, though, because the closer they crawl and die and try to get to these fortress cities, that would have an impact on negotiations for a peaceful settlement and how much territory Russia takes home. Anyway, so the evolution that's happened is that typically Russians have attacked in unsupported thrusts. And what you typically want to do when you attack a theater-wide campaign is that you want overlapping goals to support each other. That way, any possible defense has to prioritize a thrust maybe over another, which creates a crisis. And you create enough crises, you create a disaster for the other side. The beauty of the Russian attack previous is that they didn't have any. That these were entirely unsupported thrusts that were easily quashed, typically. But it seems that the interplay between these thrusts is actually supporting each other. Some of these details here, I'll point to the map here every once in a while to show you where it's happening. Anyway, so Russian offensive operations in Chasiv Yar, Toretsk, and Avdiivka directions may indicate that the Russian military command may intend to leverage ongoing Toretsk push to create operational opportunities for advances either in Chasiv Yar or Avdiivka. So these are opportunities that they're seeking to exploit here. So you can kind of see a thrust here, and then another center thrust here. So this is similar to what we've seen in Chasiv Yar, a north, south, and center thrust to create a pocket. So you can kind of see what they're trying to develop here around Konstantinivka. Spokesman for that area stated in an interview that Russian preparations that can support multiple future branch plans suggest a more developed level of operational planning and foresight that Russian command has proven capable of executing thus far in the war since early 2022. The ability of this operational plan to come to fruition, however, is bounded by the overall poor tactical level capabilities of Russian forces fighting in these areas, which is typically cobbled together from the DPR, the LPR, and some reconstituted VDV units, typically. Russian forces are trying to attack the southern flank of Chasiv Yar from Toretsk is noteworthy. So you've seen them trying to attack east to west from Bakhmut to Chasiv Yar, but it's suspected that the Russians are also trying to create a thrust from the south to put pressure on Chasiv Yar, which would, again, extend the defenses of in Chasiv Yar for the Ukrainians, which would create a much more territory for them to defend. Whereas just this one direction, they have to defend from two, which would make their defenses obviously weaker. Russian forces have continued attacks in the southern area and southeast Chasiv Yar, particularly near Klishchivka, Andriivka, Kurdyumivka, which suggested that Russian command remains interested, at least in principle, in maintaining access to a southern flank of Chasiv Yar. Recent Russian advances near Mayorsk, which is east of Toretsk, right here, forged Russian forces positions on the east left bank of the Seversky Donetsk Canal. So that canal runs all the way down to here. So if they can get past that canal, which is a land barrier, that means they got a bridge to flank now across the canal, which is much easier for them to get across, and it's a defensible terrain. The Ukrainians, but now it's breached, it'd be easier for them to get across. That's why it's important. So Mashevets again, however, said that the linked Russian efforts in the Toretsk direction with efforts to break through the Pokrovsk direction are also happening at the same time. Russian forces have intensified attacks in the center right here in the past 24 hours. This was posted on the 2nd of July, and that the Russian Central Grouping Forces has deployed additional battalions and assault companies near that area. Mashevets also stated that the operational factors in the Toretsk direction are directly related to the Avdiivka direction, right here to their left, from the Russian point of view, to their left, and assessed that Russian troops of the Central Grouping Forces are trying to interdict Ukrainian positions along the H-32 Pokrovsk Konstantinivka highway. So again, this highway right here I talked about was the backbone for that defense in the local area. Mashevets and Voloshin's separate observations of the prospect of the Russian offensive operations near Toretsk reflect a noteworthy battlefield dynamic that the Russian command may have chosen to escalate offensive operations in mid-June exactly because this area offers the Russian forces a flexible point of departure, which they can either attack north towards Chasiv Yar or west or southwest in the Avdiivka direction, depending on which route of attack the Russian command deems most immediately promising. So again, they're trying to create these crises for the Ukrainians, and they're going to move their forces around to which one is more opportune. So again, like we talked about months ago, that failure of brigade rotation around Avdiivka has really created a problem here. So you see the Russians trying to build off that momentum they have here. But yeah, so just some other notes at the bottom here, guys. The apparent decision to attack near Toretsk emphasizes that Russian command may be planning operations with more foresight, understanding them previously, so maybe their new defense minister is actually bringing some changes to the Russian chain of command. However, on the flip side of this, guys, the main Russian forces concentrated in Toretsk are formed mainly of low-quality forces from the DPR and territorial troops, which likely suggests they will struggle to properly execute attacks and coordinate altogether. So it'll probably be a continual grind of Russian forces just through pure attrition, banging their head against a brick wall. But again, meter by meter, they'll continue to take territory if they keep trying. So anyway, that's why it's important to understand the overall playbook. I think I want to give you guys an educated overlook on this whole thing. But again, these are three supporting overlapping thrusts in the Donetsk Oblast, and they're trying to get to Konstantinivka, Kramatorsk, and Sloviansk. You see the rail lines right here, and the roads are highlighted in these little bars right there. So that's what's happening as an overlook there also, guys. So there's also Russian willpower coming into effect here, guys. These are some polling numbers done by Russian opposition outlets, typically left-wing, but they typically have an okay methodology. Russian domestic polls suggest the Kremlin information operations are influencing their domestic audience. It was stated that 58% of respondents to a Levada Center poll believe that Russia should either indefinitely start peace negotiations with favor in near term or should start negotiations, sooner rather than later. An all-time high from the start of the war, but only a marginal increase since polling started in May 2024. So again, 58% of respondents in Russia say peace negotiations should start near or now. I'll get all the details here, but it was noted that 41% of Russians believe Russia is more interested in negotiations than Ukraine. Typical wording we've seen from Putin. But again, that's how they message toward their domestic audience. I won't get all the stuff again, but that's just interesting to note. Levada reported that 2/3 respondents blamed the U.S. and NATO, of course, for the war and the resulting casualties, and that this number has increased from around 53% since June 2023. Levada also noted that Russia remained concerned about the war. 95% of respondents expressed at least some concern about Ukraine shelling of border and strikes near rear areas. The 86% of respondents are concerned about the use of nuclear weapons. Accurate and specified, probably Russia. Because we see in a lot of the Russian media monitor stuff how much Solovyov and all the other ones talk about nuclear Armageddon. Anyway, it's just nuts. Anyway, so they become. Go ahead.
So I was gonna say just like IRL Posadas posting.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's just nuts. So anyway, and the Western supply of Western weapons to Ukraine should be known. And this poll is interesting right here. So just over 1/3 of Russians believe that use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine could be justified. This is why it's so important to track the nuclear saber rattling by Russia, is that they've saturated the Russian domestic audience with, nuclear weapons are fine, tactical nuclear weapons are okay, they're not strategic weapons. I think the mark for that is 500 kilotons is considered a tactical nuclear warhead. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. It might be 50 or 500 kilotons. I know it's another zero, but I think the one dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki was 20 kilotons, maybe 15. So what's considered tactical can still wipe a whole city out. But anyway, it's just weird how they differentiate that. It's just weird. But over half the respondents remain directly opposed to the use of nuclear weapons. So at least half of Russia's still somewhat sane, but 1/3 is maybe. So, Christ. Yeah. Anyway, these Russian polls indicate that Russians who criticize the conduct of the war in Ukraine still support the war due to patriotism and disenfranchisement. I won't get all the details here too much, but there was a polling that talked about how patriots are concerned about casualties stuff like that, and they have a detachment from power. They're apolitical, but they possess serious and specific complaints about the government, and they cite patriotism for both their war justifications and their war criticisms. It's kind of like, how to put it, around 2008, you started having Republicans talking about why are we still in Iraq, why are we still in Afghanistan, support the troops, but the government isn't doing it right. Obama is doing it the wrong ways. It's kind of the same thing, but they're not going to directly address Putin in that way. They're worried about the war and stuff like that, though. So it is interesting to note that they have to defend themselves that way. There's also a caveat to what ISW was saying is that people have to blanket it in patriotism to validate their criticism. They can't just be like Navalny or his cohorts that were just like straight up Western liberals that just oppose the system entirely, because they know the consequences for that, though. So they have to veil it in concern for Russia's welfare, the concern for the armed forces of Russia, that we have to give these criticisms. So it's become a bit more smart. It's a bit more smarter tactic for Russian opposition to talk in those tones. But it's just interesting because I would imagine over time you're going to have a lot more factionalization within the Russian domestic sphere if these criticisms become a little bit more louder. There'll be other people that are just diehard loyalists, or people that do have valid criticisms of the way Russia's conducting this war, like striking hospitals. Anyway, so that's just interesting to know the background there, guys. Bottom of the stack here for the headlines for this last week. Some good news. Ukraine is addressing its manpower challenges and forming several new brigades. At least 10 have been planned. But delayed and insufficient Western weapons and their deliveries will prevent Ukraine from equipping all these new brigades immediately. It was stated by Zelensky in an interview with Bloomberg on the 3rd that Ukraine forces are better positioned in terms of manpower than they were in the last few months. And Ukraine's ability to conduct future counteroffensive operations depends on equipping these brigades with heavy equipment, such as fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, tanks, and heavy artillery. I think recently there was we're giving them a lot of Humvees, M113s, MRAPs, and stuff like that. So those are coming. They are in the pipeline. But again, delivery has been really slow. I'm beginning to think there's some fuckery going on in the DoD. That's going on with this stuff. I don't know, but who knows? But
yeah,
Biden's a son of a bitch too, because he keeps the. I mean, I just posted in chat prior to the show, right? Despite the hospital attack, there was enough daylight left in America that John Kirby, in a press conference, said they aren't lifting the restrictions on U.S. supplied missiles to Ukraine to strike the rear areas in Russia. So despite losing close to 30 children in a hospital that treated kids for leukemia, cancer patients, unfortunately, right? They're still not going to lift the weapon strikes.
Yeah.
So,
and to be clear here, we're not talking about dumbass children. We're talking about actual valid military targets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. That might have been misconstrued there, but yes, again, valid military targets, not blood for blood, eye for eye.
Doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, not eye for eye in that case. There should be stated that Ukrainian brigade commander operating Chasiv Yar stated that they need more ammunition than manpower. Again, Chasiv Yar is kind of the focal center for a lot of the front right now. Zelensky said that military equipment is taking too long to arrive at the front, however, echoing his sentiments from earlier in June. And Ukrainian media has routinely highlighted in recent months the lack of sufficient material for equipping all the new Ukrainian brigades currently being formed. Current reporting suggests that Ukraine will not be able to fully equip all their upcoming brigades without the arrival of additional Western military security assistance. This is just, again, creating rotation problems and other stuff like that, though, guys. If you can get these brigades in the fight, because it's at least 10. I think the number was 13. So you figure at least 30,000 people are now in these brigades. Get those tired units back off the line, let them see their families, get these new units in, just creates better morale, creates experience. It's just what needs to happen. But because of the slow influx of U.S. weapons, Western weapons, also from Germany, Ukrainians are having a harder time. Anyway, so it should also be noted that Iran and Russia signed a bank agreement enabling Russia on the July 4th to trade with Iran in the ruble and the Iranian rial. Not that it really matters, because the ruble has close to 10% inflation or something like that, and the rial is through the fucking roof. It's not even funny how shit their inflation is with their currency. So 2 weak currencies can out trade.
It's almost unreal.
Brilliant rhetorical rapport there, sir. Well done. Well done. Anyway, Ukrainian drone operators. This is also another interesting evolution of the war. Due to lack of missile interceptors, Ukrainians are now using their own FPV drones to strike down Russian drones. I got a video to show you guys. So, Ukrainian drone operators appear to be improving their capabilities to interdict longer-range Russian drones in midair. And these technological innovations may allow Ukrainian forces to ease pressures on short-range and medium-range air defense missiles and assets, if successfully fielded at scale. So I'll show you a bit here. I'll get to the details.
Hello everyone. 2 videos for you here, both similar incidents. This first one shows a Ukrainian FPV drone intercepting a Zala 421 recon UAV. This isn't the first time we've seen FPV drones intercepting other drones, but videos of it are rare, so they're always worth a look. And Ukraine certainly seems to have perfected the tactic, as, spoiler alert, we have another video of it to come soon. I've seen the price of around 80,000 for one of these Zala drones, and for one of Russia's main spotter drones. Here's the location. So
this is Yurazhne and Starozhane, which is in the Zaporizhzhia. I'm sorry, it's on the border between Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia. This is one of the thrusts during the counteroffensive.
Skies around Starozhzhia. On these states you can see that this is on the southern front and in Ukrainian-controlled territory. So this is all a spotter drone likely seeking out targets for Russian artillery or even Russian Lancet drones. The second video shows a similar incident. This time though, the target is an Orlan 10, Russia's most commonly used recon drone. The drone hits it, and we then see an image of the Orlan on the ground. The Orlan costs between $87,000 to $120,000. So, using these cheap FPV drones to destroy them in the air is a very cost-effective way of doing so. But would it really be practical in a large scale? These incidents may very well be pretty much flukes, the FPV drone being in the air at the time, spotting the Orlan 10 or the Zala, then hitting it as an opportune target. With these spotter drones in the air, I think we need detecting and intercepting quickly before they call down artillery or lancers
to it, so they can start shooting each other.
Yeah, little 22s
Using FPV drones launched specifically to intercept them would be too slow, I think.
With like a,
however, given we have these 2 videos from 2 different locations along the front released today of drone interceptions, it does make me wonder if maybe Ukraine has started having FPV drones circling at an altitude, actually hunting out larger Russian drones like this, hovering around and ready to attack if a larger drone is detected. If so, then it's a good cheap way of intercepting these, better than using an expensive...
This is in the Kherson area. This is Kherson itself. The beachheads for Ukrainian Marines are about right here and right here. And the Kakovka Dam is in this area right here. That's what you're looking at on the map.
...expensive missile. But really, again, the speed is an issue. I think these interceptions here are pretty much flukes, just the FPV drone being in the air in the same area at the same time as the Russian drone and hitting it as an opportune target. But I may be wrong, of course. So, that's it for this video. Hope you found it interesting. Thanks so much.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, guys. So this is an interesting evolution. It's been noted by a couple of other channels I've seen on YouTube, so I just thought it'd be worth noting in a little bit more detail for you guys. Again, footage posted shows Ukrainian FPV drones striking down a Orlan 10 recon drone near Velko Novosilka and a Zala recon drone. Ukraine grouping of forces in the Kharkiv area posted footage of them intercepting those, and also of intercepting a Russian Lancet loading munition, which is tits, because those are what Russians use to try to kill tanks. So taking out those Lancets are also pretty important. I mean, recon drones obviously very expensive, but just to save lives, just taking out Lancets is great. Both Ukrainian and Russian forces appear to be improving their capability to use FPV drones to intercept other FPV drones at the tactical level, but ISW has not yet observed confirmation of Russian forces using FPV drones to strike Ukrainian loitering munitions or longer range recon drones in midair. A robust Ukrainian capability to use cheap and widely available drones interdict these more expensive drones like $100,000 Orlan 10 drone would certainly help them out in the missile interceptor department, though, because that would save a few $1 million missile to take down a $80,000 drone. Using a $10,000, $5,000 FPV drone from a commercial store. So it's pretty cool. Just the adaptation of this war is amazing. But again, it has to be emphasized. This is because the West has not provided them with the assets they need to defend themselves. The Ukrainians are having to create these adaptations. Creativity is amazing, don't get me wrong. But again, the West has failed, and the Ukrainians are having to fill the gap with these adaptations. So.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
It's a L for the free market.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And Randers,
they kind of have to, do what they can with, or it's just kind of them like trying, like I said, free market specifically because it's trying to find like the cheapest way possible. With the means they have available in order to get a result,
right?
Because of the lack of Western aid, so it's just like, well, it looks like we'll go on Alibaba and start
just start shopping around a little bit,
see what you can do with that. So yeah.
All right, guys. So we're done with the headlines here. We'll start winding down here pretty shortly. But yeah, so the Russian mobilization stuff, some interesting numbers. Russian federal subjects continue to increase their monetary incentives for recruitment. This is important because it shows how much they're having to incentivize financially people to get in the Russian military anymore. It was reported in Tatarstan that about a $12,000 one-time bonus is now for people who sign up in that area for contracts that were before July 31st. This is a one-time payment, has roughly doubled from, again, $6,000. Tatarstan previously paid contract Nikki, or contract soldiers, about $5,700. So that they're increasing this bonus, up 200% is definitely noticeable. And if they have the money, I don't know, because the way this works is that the Russian federal subjects, as they term them, or oblasts, this comes out of their budget, not the Moscow budget. So depending on how much money these oblasts can generate their own revenues to pay for these guys, that money is also being taken out of the same pot of money that goes to pensions, schools, roads, stuff like that, right? Keeping the lights on. This is having a knock-on effect, obviously, on their quality of life. I'm not suspecting, protests in the streets over this sort of thing, but maybe this will build something over time. I don't know, but it's also just showing how disincentivized people are from recruiting immediately to the war. Go ahead.
Dude, I was just saying, imagine if the United States did this, like
$12,000.
I was gonna say with the Oblast funding, like imagine if like Mississippi had to like outfit, all of their National Guard, and whoever else was coming out from there, and just throwing them out there into fucking war. So
imagine Oregon paying National Reservists of Oregon to go fight in Afghanistan or Iraq, right?
They had, like,
you would have protests out the ass of Portland, like no fucking problem. Anyway, the entire stand
Oregon, Washington,
well,
at least Washington has joint base Lewis and McCord. That's something, but or like a poor red state, like Arkansas or West Virginia or something. That'd be or Idaho. That'd be crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just interesting though, guys. And Tartan's fairly poor too. Open source researchers analyzed satellite imagery again and assessed that Russia has removed roughly 42% of Russian tanks from pre-war open-air storage. They report on the 6th that Russia has removed roughly 2,500 tanks total from open-air storage since the start of the full-scale invasion. Russian forces removed roughly 115 tanks per month from the storage from February 2022 to July 2023. But have removed roughly 60 tanks per month from July 2023 to July 2024. What this notes is that the Russian military likely removed more tanks per month in the first 16 months of the war, since the tanks were in good condition and could compensate for the initial high tank losses, but the removal rate has declined as the quality of tanks and storage has declined. So something that's been predicted. But now we're starting to see the satellite imagery that the quality of tanks is probably so bad now that they're not just scraping the barrel, they're removing the bottom of the barrel to lick the bits of shit that's in the wood grains there, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, Russia's reportedly recruiting women from Russian penal colonies, something we talked about a little bit more last week also. The New York Times reported on the 10th, citing former inmates, that Russian military recruiters removed a group of several women from a penal colony in St. Petersburg in late May 2024. And the Ukrainian brigade gave us a video last week, I think we showed it, of fighting in Pokrovsk. Direction on the 2nd, that there were isolated cases of Russian female penal recruits fighting the Pokrovsk direction and across the theater. Russian forces observed even a whole detachment of female fighters, probably just a squad. But we're starting to see this happen too. So, again,
on the combat footage too.
Okay, good stuff. Lastly, guys, from the mobilization stuff for Russia, the Russian info space continues to discuss the treatment of wounded and disabled Russian servicemen. Was one report on the theory that Russian commanders formed at least one brigade previously. Commanders that from at least one brigade previously forced untreated, wounded, and disabled servicemen to return to the front line to participate in highly attritional lead assaults. I think this is from the 1009th regiment, maybe. Anyway, it's one of those mobilized.
That's the Mobic one?
Yes, exactly. Anything over 1,000 is Mobic, yeah. One Russian blogger claimed on the 1st of July that Russian commanders are forcing wounded, disabled servicemen to return to the front line. And more stuff. So you guys could picture. I won't keep repeating them, but there are several points of citation that they can point to that, too, even from the Russian side. For Ukraine, Ukraine continues to conduct force reforms and reorganization to strengthen its domestic combat capacity. The National Police of Ukraine announced it's forming 3 new combat brigades comprised of 8,000 total policemen and policewomen from the existing Department of Preventative Activities and the Corps Special Police Unit. The state on the 27th that Ukraine has increased the number of mobilized service people and that general mobilization dynamics are improving compared to the situation in March and February 2024. So part of the DoD announcement, they announced the purchase of $2.2 billion worth of U.S. Produced air defense interceptors, and the NATO package worth $150 million for Ukraine on July 3rd. Yes, the $2.2 billion is going to be used to produce Patriot and ASAMS air defense missiles for Ukraine. The DoD has yet to announce that it is sending those missiles to Ukraine, however. They did announce also, however, on the back of this, though, that any Patriot missiles are going to be prioritized to be sent to Ukraine. A victim of that is actually Switzerland, which I found odd. I'm just like, well, why the fuck would the Swiss need Patriot systems? You know, like they're worried about like Germany invading or France
protection.
Yeah, right. Just like the Swiss. Okay, sorry, I'm not going to crack the Swiss.
Saw commandos drop in.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, head over the gold goy.
Just one of those odd things. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. But anyway,
is it a loophole thing? Like I know we bought some weapons from like South Korea and then sent it to another country and then
right. This is again, I have to thank Baruch for my understanding of this, though. Like, the countries order the systems from the companies, right? The countries that have the companies, right? So they put that on the books, so to speak, right? So the order is still on the books, right? And how they get them is usually from first come, first serve, I guess. But the DoD reprioritized Ukraine to the top of the list. Switzerland is near the bottom of the list, right? Just due to priorities. So that just makes sense because who the fuck's going to fuck around with Switzerland to begin with? But like, why the fuck do they need Patriot systems? But again, so any new missiles that come out is going to happen. It's going to go to Ukraine. I just saw someone pop in chat here. Ukraine is the empire of Khazar. Anyway, if you have an actual legitimate question, please say something. So just a little bit of weird activity, guys. Russian authorities continue to illegally deport, militarize, and passportize Ukrainian children. It was reported that the Ukrainian Luhansk Oblast military admin said that Russian authorities are deporting 138 children from occupied Luhansk to Volgograd to conduct basically military training on radiation, chemical, and biological protection and drone operation. So, anyway. Okay, guys, so have a couple Middle East stuff. I do have to go over this, though, a little bit with you guys. There's some interesting stuff. So we talked a bit about, well, actually, time about the ceasefire negotiations between Hamas and Israel. They started a new round of it. Part of Israel's post-war plan is to have the Palestinian Authority basically govern Gaza, but as we've talked about on show, it's basically a facade operation at this point because they're so compromised. And ISW actually kind of, I would say verified, but they added onto the delegitimacy of the Palestinian Authority even governing in the West Bank. Anyway, so I'll give you the details here. Palestinian Authority's inability to exert effective control over refugee camps in the West Bank itself has significant implications for the post-war situation in the Gaza Strip. If these statements to the New York Times are accurate, the Palestinian Authority remains extremely unpopular, and Hamas will be able to easily justify continued resistance to the Palestinian Authority in the Gaza Strip if authority assumes control with Israeli backing. Surviving Hamas in the Gaza Strip will attempt to rapidly resume its control of the Gaza Strip, continue its efforts to undermine the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. It's probably actually displacing the Palestinian Authority at this point, I would say. But Hamas sees control of the Gaza Strip as an interim step to creating the Palestinian state. Anyway, got a video right here for you guys. It's kind of interesting. The Houthi media published a video on the 30th of a Houthi attack targeting the Liberian-flagged, Greek-owned, and operated bulk carrier MV Transworld Navigator with a new model of unmanned surface vessel. The Houthis conducted the attack that damaged the Transworld Navigator in the Red Sea on June 23rd. The footage showed the Houthi-built 10-meter-long unmanned naval vessel called Destructive Flood. So, like Al-Aqsa Flood, now they got Destructive Flood. It was with them in water. Anyway, living in a desert, you got to dream about, water, I guess. But anyway, don't know. The Houthis said that the Destructive Flood can carry a payload of 1,000 to 1,500 kilograms of explosives. And I got that video for you guys right here. We'll scrub through all the, noodle script here, and get to the footage. So again, they struck the area right underneath the bridge there. We saw this on I forgot the name of the other ship, but that was the same area where they last time used drones to hit the same sort of class of ship. Death to America, usual stuff.
Yeah, that looked like about 1.5 kilograms. Big fucking boo.
Yeah.
They're doing what I shitposted about with the pirateering and the SIVO stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, that's only half the video. This is them showing the highlight reel with the drone. Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah, I know.
It's always bad. So it's got an outboard motor with, what would be a normal boat thing, but that's why they had a guy in it. I don't know. Maybe they needed to get closer to the target. But they're showing that it can be remotely operated here, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, first I was like, that's just a regular.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to have a driver in the middle of the Red Sea because, where the fuck is he going to swim? I mean, it's relatively smaller,
on the single part for him because it allows on the side.
Right? Yeah, it is. Just silly. Yeah. Little, so they hit the the buoy there. But, it's interesting how lacking their peripheral even is on their own videos on these things.
Okay, so that was the first buoy.
Yeah. Now he's just always doing surveillance to show how tight the radius is.
Anything about sensors?
No, I haven't got anything about that. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't got any data on that. I guess it would be nothing more than like a camera and a normal commercial RF suite, basically. You know,
I don't know. Even I thought it would just be like a pre-programmed path, and they would just intercept the, the container ship based on how many knots it's going.
They would just use
look like
normal.
it's like maneuverability.
No, they'd be able to control that remotely.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Anyway, that's the whole reel there, guys. So if you guys can read
Or
Google
just remote
script,
control.
yeah. Anyway, just remote control drone, basically.
Because they have a drone. Maybe a drone follows it, and they just have a remote controller used.
Maybe I have no idea. You know, because depends if it's like over the horizon, you know, or if it's HF. You know, maybe they'll work. You know, doing it that way. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, so there was also the Iranian presidential elections, and the final runoff election happened on July 5th. To our surprise and to ISW's guffaw, they were predicting the ultra-conservative win, so, you know, shows how much liberals know, right? The moderate politician Masoud Pezeshkian, I can't enunciate Farsi that well, won the election, actually. Iranian media reported that the moderate received over 16 million votes, while his opponent, ultra-conservative parlor Saeed Jalil, received approximately 13.5 million votes. Respectively, in the first round, the moderate won 10.4 and the ultra-conservative won 9.5. The first round on June 28th. And was reported that 49.8% of the electorate voted, actually. And the Ayatollah actually said these were good numbers, which marks approximately 10% increase from the first round of elections. It's a bit more engagement from the Iranians, I guess. It should also be noted that the moderate is likely to pursue nuclear negotiations with the West, which I would be interested in to see. Although it's unclear to what extent Al-Khamenei will permit him to do so. It should also be noted that the guy that really helped out with that negotiation the first time with Obama's administration was their foreign minister. He also died in a helicopter crash. So the guy that would be really knowing how the nuts and bolts of foreign diplomacy to happen is dead. So we'll see if it happens, but don't know. Lastly, guys, they're just a bit more on the new round of ceasefire negotiations with Hamas. Basically, it's again debates over wording and timing. It's all related to the first phase of the ceasefire. Instead of Israel with ending the conflict permanently, Hamas is basically quibbling about some withdrawal, basically. I won't get all the details here. But that's the major point of contention right now. I would argue that would allow Israel to retain the monopoly of force in the theater, which Hamas has fought very hard to contest, at least. Arguable that they control it in some extent, because they can reconstitute their forces whenever Israel leaves an area. Anyway, I'll just get into the details here. Hamas has continued to resist Israel and U.S. efforts to create a phased ceasefire deal that would secure the release of Israeli hostages, end the war, and begin reconstruction efforts. The main gap in the ceasefire negotiations is significant because agreeing to the most of Hamas's language would effectively commit Israel to a permanent ceasefire. Like, that's a bad thing. But Hamas has also been demanding, before Hamas had released all remaining hostages. So again, Hamas would retain the remaining hostages that are still alive before Israel. They wouldn't release the hostages until Israel pulled all their troops back, but then they would still have some. Hamas's current demands could also enable Hamas to drag on negotiations indefinitely. I find that debatable. They remain unlikely to accept a proposal that does not meet its maximalist demands, including a permanent ceasefire, complete withdrawal, and a hostage-for-hostage exchange. The proposal in 3 phases for May 30th were a 6-week ceasefire and withdrawal of Israeli forces from the densely populated areas in Gaza Strip, so mainly urban areas. Hamas would release an unspecified number of hostages, including Americans, women, elderly, and sick individuals, including exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. This is normal. I Palestinians typically trade, 1 for 10-ish, prisoners for every Jew they have given back to Israel. Displaced Palestinian civilians would return to their homes, and humanitarian aid would surge to 600 trucks per day, a notable increase from the 500 trucks in the earlier Israeli proposal. So that sounds good to me, really. But phase 2 would involve Hamas and other Palestinian militias releasing all remaining living hostages, including the idea for withdrawing from the Gaza Strip completely. Biden said the United States, Egypt, and Qatar would facilitate continued negotiations during the phase. The wording is also like an enduring ceasefire, maintainable ceasefire. It's just weird reasons why they're continuing negotiations. Phase 3 involves major reconstruction efforts at the Gaza Strip and also involves Hamas and other militias returning the bodies of all hostages to Israel. So that's the reason for the pause in the ceasefire. And lastly, guys, got some stuff I want to go over here. So as far as articles go, I didn't do a write-up on all of them just because it would take up too much of my time, essentially. So this is an updated map from Spatial Ground. So the guy that was doing the maps on military land had actually moved over to Twitter, and he's still putting out maps. So, I check on him every once in a while, and he did an update on July 6th, I think. This is July 4th, sorry, of the situation in Chesapeake Yard. So this is the Canal Micro District right here. This is Kalinka right up here, where the 107th is stationed, and the canal runs right here, as you can see. So this is basically the contact line right now, at least between the two boroughs. That's where the situation's at right now, and it's still very defensible terrain, but depends on American military weapons and artillery getting there on time and adequate supply to defend that position. So first thing I want to talk about is actually the yearly manpower generation in Ukraine. This has been a point of contention with some commentators, actually, and I did my own little bit of research. Let me try to find it here because I got too many windows open. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me do this first. We're going to go over the map first, as we overlooked that the first time. So I'll bring that up right now, actually. So it should pop up. Sorry, that's the other thing. Okay, there we go. Other window. All right. So this is the map here, guys, for the war. We'll just go over it very briefly here because I want to get to the articles a little bit, which I have in the same window here. So we'll go up toward Sumy first because we talked about those raids a little bit. They didn't really mark them too well here on the map here, but this is the Sumy Oblast right here, and this is the area where some of those raids have been happening now. Nothing really lasting. It's been 1 kilometer penetrations, and then typically them being wiped out, it seems like, though. So yeah, just to give you a point of reference there. So what's been reported, and this was updated today supposedly, but reports are saying that Ukrainians have actually liberated Helboke. I think these guys probably wait on die hard confirmation though, but it looks like the Ukrainians have actually successfully counterattacked in this area, which is important though because of this chain of villages here. So the next move might actually be towards Strelichcha right here. So that road runs right here, but this is defensible terrain right here, so there's a water feature the Russians defend. But you're also looking over open terrain here. So if you're going to pick one, maybe here close to the border, I don't know. This doesn't look very traversable. It's all just open land, water features here, and don't know. Maybe that'll just be where they stop also. Because there's a lot of area here for them to defend. Well, I would like to be a fly on the wall, in that briefing for planning or for the Ukrainian command there. What else we got? Yeah, so let's go over to Volchansk. We showed the map earlier. This is still just showing the same pocket into the aggregate plant there. Ukraine's kind of pushed in this area a little bit and liberated a lot of this area right up here. So this map is a little lagging sometimes. So let's go over towards nothing more near Kiivka. The Russians have made a little bit more progress in this area. It's this Koschane, Tabivivka, Berestove. Let's see if anything changed in the last few days. Yeah, so you can see a major thruster that was about 1 kilometer in thrust right here. Yeah, so that's unfortunate how it does happen, though. The Ukrainians did counterattack south of here, though. So I'd imagine Azov is probably going to be fire brigaded up in this area to contest or retake Koschane here. So That is where the Russians have moved in the last few days. We'll go toward Makivka. I think there was some movement there too by the Russians in the last few days. Yeah, so you can see some of the movements there too. We'll go back to the date there. So you have just another tree line for the Russians. Yeah, so we kind of went over this a lot. That there's been good progress by the Ukrainians taking back over this area, pushing them out of away from Terney. The Russians were reporting that they took over Belhorivka, but even according to this map, they haven't taken over. It's still them controlling this little borough out here, still contested chalk field there. Russians have been moving up near Vimivka towards Sivirsk. I don't think there's been any real push in the last few days in that area. A lot of it's been out near Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar. We showed footage earlier. Let's show that again here. So there's been pushes from the Russians out in the forest here south of Chasiv Yar. We showed a video near Chivka of the Ukrainians taking that area and holding it a little bit better. Yeah, so this is a major concern for a lot of Ukrainians. This is Toretsk right here. This whole area has been fairly quiet for most of the war. The Russians moving in this area has been a major development because a lot of these defenses have been held up since 2014, 2015. The worry is that there aren't developed defenses behind these urban areas because they're saying that the best defenses are already taken or are under siege right now. I think that's a little bit alarmist, though, but anyway, that's what they're worried about, though. So the Russians got to fight through all this urban area right here. Just a huge maze of stuff, and there's New York right there. We showed this thrust, hoped for a counterattack, but it looks like the Russians held and are advancing through the southern boroughs of New York right there. Nothing really going on in this area. There has been some more advancements, though. The Russians moved into this area, reaching the water feature here near Novoselivka Persha in the last week here. So you see some progress. Again, kind of a controlled withdrawal, I would say. This is from the first of the month, and over the last week, the Russians have advanced tree line by tree line to the water feature there. So they're trying to basically envelop Novoselivka Persha and try to get to these roads right here, cut off retreat from Ukraine for the Ukrainians, though. Krasnohorivka still being fought over. It's a hell of a fight, and yeah, that's basically the rest of it there, guys. Verpotny is still contested. The Russians have a foothold in the south part of it, and some more fighting going on near the Antonovsky Bridge. So anyway, back to the articles here, guys. So concern over Ukrainian generation numbers, basically. I'll go over really briefly here, but basically, so the revised numbers here I can give you. I think I may have mentioned this last week. It's worth noting again. The hard bottom for Russian casualties, deaths, is 120,000 and 50,000 for the Ukrainians. This is the Ukrainian casualties are based off Medusa's trustinQAlosses.org. Seems to be the one a lot of people are citing, so I guess that's the consensus. I guess I don't have a real opinion on it. I'm just kind of reporting, but that's what's going on anyway. So anyway, so it says right here that they were worried about corruption of the mobilization centers for Ukraine. Ukraine, this is an older article, but they did lower the draft age from 27 to 25. So if you look at the numbers, again, a hard number is 50,000 will go for 2 years and 4 months for the war. So little south of 25,000 a year in deaths for Ukraine, right? Every year, so for age 27, it's about a little over 200,000 Ukrainians. I'm sorry, approximately 215,000 Ukrainian men will be turning 27 this upcoming year. So just based off that number alone, we're looking at about 10%. Again, I'm just going up base numbers here. I know this is a little morbid, even ghoulish, really, just looking at bodies as numbers. But this is the macro, calculus of this whole war, unfortunately. So just even looking at the base numbers here, men coming of age that are, again, there's also the number of who's, conscriptable. But again, just base bodies, 215,000 men per year, basically, in Ukraine come of age to fight every year. just in that. But then they expanded it from 27 to 25, which led it up to about 400,000 men. So it could render up to nearly 400,000 men turning 25 and 26 within the year to be conscripted. So that opened up the manpower pool. And lowering the draft age to 21 would open up to over 600,000. So again, the numbers here convey a better picture, right? It just goes to show that Ukraine is not, in a major crises of manpower, basically, right? So if you figure just base numbers, about north of 200,000 every year, right? Men every year come of conscription age and are able to fight. That's very sustainable. I'll give you a historical example. Again, we all know how much of the First World War was for France. For a whole generation, they lost 25% of men in that generation, right? Again, 10 to 25% is a huge gap. And again, 10% of men in any category is still bad. But looking at just pure population numbers, that's 5% of a segment of society. I'm not downplaying this at all, but these are just the pure numbers. I'm conveying to you guys that Ukraine can sustain this fight for a very long time. Again, it comes down to just political will and Western ability to deliver weapons on time. But whereas with Russia, I don't have those numbers right now, but I just want to convey to you, Ukraine is very, very fine. And with them lowering the draft age down to 25, they opened up the manpower pool to nearly 500,000 people. And they managed to create those 10 new brigades, 13 obviously with the police force upgrades there too, to 13 new brigades, and that's not even 10% of the new manpower pool. So those 10 brigades are going to have a major effect on the battlefield once they get deployed and have the weapons. So anyway, I wanted to show you this bit here. This is the Canal Micro District in Chasiv Yar. So we always know that the Ukrainians retreat after the terrain's basically indefensible, right? So this is what the Russians have advanced to on the eastern side of Chasiv Yar. Again, the Canal Micro District, and this is, I guess, looking out toward the Russian lines here, would be these tree lines here, but then they just leveled everything. This is the typical Soviet bloc apartment complexes you see, but they're shelled to shit. Just hollowed husks. You mean like the roofs, the floors, and everything. The only thing that's left is the facade left of these buildings, mostly though. That was a Ukrainian vehicle there, I believe. But anyway, there's nothing left of defense, so that's why they retreated, it looks like, though. So this is from the 24th Mechanized. Okay. This is a Substack I do read. This topic of it is, has Russia blown its opportunity in 2024? Just been looking at opinions and points of reference for Russia's culminating offensive here this year. We talked about some of these factors, manpower, the reach of Russian defense industrial capacity to scale up anymore. I would say it's at its peak. Russia has surprised us. They are versatile. Don't get me wrong, but they are, again, reporting shortages. Their labor pool. They're doubling the one-time payments for volunteering. So we're probably seeing the best opportunity for Russia to push this war anymore has now passed, possibly. So this guy puts out an updated assessment every once in a while. He goes over a few measures, and I'll just go over them. I'll go over the measure, and then I'll just give you the conclusion to give you the crux of the whole thing. His first measure is Russia able to neutralize Ukrainian strategic strike activities, drone strikes, missile strikes, stuff like that, right? According to him, I'm sorry, yeah, this particular guy is actually his name is Mick Ryan. He is a consultant for the Australian military, and he talks at a lot of these foundations and stuff. So anyway, at his best assessment is that they might be made against this measure for success is that Russia is failing, with few indications that Russia will be able to improve their ability to degrade or neutralize Ukrainian strike capabilities. Measure 2, Russia is able to destroy or degrade Ukrainian tactical and operational reserves, C2 and logistics over the course of 2024. Talk about how they're regenerating, manpower, creating new brigades. This is the reported losses according to the source from Twitter. Anyway, so those are reported losses. So you see, March 2022 is when they really started reporting on this, and it's scaled up to this area right here. And we're just into July. It's reported that the last couple of months have been the bloodiest for Russia in this war so far. Yeah. Anyway, so his measure for their this field though is that the assessment that must be that Russia is experiencing limited success in the attrition of Ukrainian forces, particularly as Ukrainian recruiting and new U.S. European military assistance, as well as Russian battlefield casualties, are steadily eroding the Russian massive advantages in manpower and firepower that it had for the first half of 2024. Measure 3, Russia seizes additional Ukrainian territory. This is the measure from June 2023 during the peak of the Ukrainian counteroffensive to May, and you can see it just kind of slide downward there a little bit. He says Russia can be assessed as having achieved some success in multiple axes, land for land, but you see what they take over is typically bomb-shelled. Russia decreases, measure number 4, the number of and impact of Ukrainian attacks against Crimea. This has been he says in his assessment, Russia has had limited success in reducing Ukrainian attacks against Crimea. I would say that's kind of false because Russia is still falling victim to the destruction of their S-300, 400, and their S-500 battery, destruction of the radar systems and stuff like that. We just don't have hard numbers for what they have in country in Crimea, but any shaping operations in that area is a long-term strategic goal for Ukraine. So Ukraine's doing fairly well, and Russia's measure in that capacity of defending and holding Crimea is failing in that capacity. Measure number 5, Russia captures and destroys Ukrainian forces. The measure of success in Russia has not yet been achieved. This objective despite the attrition of Ukrainian forces overall. So a failure. Last couple things here, guys. Russian misinformation and influence activities. He would say it's been actually the success in a very robust misinformation campaign running in Ukraine, and has spread to multiple rumors and stories about corruption, mistreatment of military recruits, and distributed a range of misinformation products. It is yet to achieve any significant fracturing of Ukrainian society or major schisms, but you can see it's had an effect on their American audience. Lastly, external observers of the war, whether or not the Ukrainian believe that Russia's offensive had been a success, would obviously say that's probably not. So he's using Australian polling here. The vast majority of Australians, 86%, continue to support keeping strict sanctions on Russia steady from 2023, and 8 in 10, 80%, support admitting Ukrainian refugees into Australia, and down 4 points last year, 74% support providing military aid to Ukraine, which is steady from last year. So according to him, nothing's really changed. Okay, last couple of things here, guys. I thought this was interesting because Azov Brigade's chief of staff called for an investigation on this Lieutenant General Yuri Sotol. He was removed a few weeks ago. He was removed from his position as commander of the Joint Forces Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Zelensky announced that Brigade General Andriy Hamatov will replace him. Sotol was removed a day after Bogdan Kreptovich, again, chief of staff of the Azov Brigade, wrote a letter. I'll get to that link in a minute. To the State Bureau, calling for an investigation into an unnamed military general who reportedly caused more Ukrainian soldiers' deaths than any Russian general. It was later confirmed that this was, again, Lieutenant General Sotol. Sotol held 2 positions, the head of the Joint Forces Command and the commander of the strategic group Kortesia. According to the decree published by Zelensky, he was dismissed only from the first one. So, according to, again, militaryland.net, this is Bogdan. He wrote a letter to the State Bureau. That's a picture of him right there, and I guess that would be the Serebrenyansk Forest because of the sand and the trees there. This is his post from himself. I wrote a letter to the SBI calling for an investigation into one military general who, in my opinion, killed more Ukrainian soldiers than any Russian general. I don't care if they start an investigation against me. I don't care if they put me in jail. Bold words. I don't care that combatants and brigade commanders are judged for the loss of an observation post, but the general is not judged for the loss of regions and dozens of cities and the loss of thousands of soldiers. The conditions under which the brigades are currently fighting, I will say this is unreal heroism, first of all, for soldiers, platoon commanders, companies, battalions, and brigades. And their heroism lies in the fact that they were restrained their enemies not to thanks, but in spite of. Sometimes I think the world sends us scumbags to rally us, etc., etc. So, kudos to Azov for speaking the truth again. just impressed with their candor and their professionalism again. Anyway, yeah, so that does it for the brief, guys. Let me that's shut down. Okay, cool. A little over time. That's fine. We had a lot to go today. Sailing Gale says, "Sex for Russia. They're great people responding to a Western threat. Said that Ukraine got swept up in the fight used by the West." Anyway, okay, Gale. I would recommend you watch our videos when we started this project 2 years ago. We covered in detail the reasons for Ukraine's defense, the inaccurate misinformation operations that Russia's been putting out about Ukraine being a tool, etc., etc. You know, it. Anyway, I'll address it shortly. The assumption is that Ukraine has no agency, that they didn't have any past grievances, that Russia has never done anything bad to them. They have very good reason for doing this, though. Maybe you're just joking with me. Can't tell by your smiley face yet, but anyway. Again, if you have conversation, let me know. I'm always willing to engage people. Maybe chat will help me out with that too. But anyway. Okay. You say you fully support Ukraine defending themselves, but they are being played.
How they're protecting themselves from being genocided.
So let me put you let me put you in a mental frame here, bud. Before we go to break, a man enters your house, but you have a millionaire neighbor, right? He's just richer because Ukraine is poor. Would you say the millionaire is playing you because you're defending your home because you're an armed intruder in your foyer or your living room? No. You know, he's trying to take your house, kill your children, burn down your house. Like, to say that Ukraine has no agency in defending themselves is, I'm going to be rude here. It's moronic. You're being stupid. So unfuck your brain. I don't try to be mean to people. I'm typically try to be professional about it, but this is something that needs to be addressed, dude. And I'm thankful for your support for Ukraine, but to think that Ukraine doesn't have the agency to defend themselves and that they're puppets for whatever reason. We've heard things from the Khazar thing that Putin and Zelensky are in it together. I mean, like, there's so much blood on the wall that some of it has stuck, unfortunately. These nationalists in Ukraine are fighting for their home. They have reinvigorated their culture. Case in point is that, because I just know these things, folk culture has actually become a part of Ukrainian modern identity. It's something you don't see in any other Western nations. Case in point, I was watching Next Jelly, right? He was playing Death from Above. It's an FPV drone game. Anyway, the credits were a song called Kalina. This was the game show they have on fucking EU. Anyway, it was like the winner of their like EU music-a-thon, whatever it's fucking called. But that song is an old folk song from Ukrainian folklore. This is a reinvigoration and a reaffirmation of their base identity. And to see it come out in a modern context in the middle of a war is something that nationalists dream of, to talk about their old ancestral culture being brought into the modern context. This is counter to Hollywood, Brussels, everything else. They're pulling from their own past and making it their present. If you have issues with that and you think that's them being played, I don't know what to say. Let me see here. Mr. Fox says Ukraine should have kept their nuclear weapons. Yeah, that was absolutely true. Okay. I just it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Dude. I'm not gonna.
They're not living in reality. They're living in a video game. Like,
no. I'm not gonna call you. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude to you. I'm just saying it's a moronic idea. You and I could support Ukraine.
Resurrect the ghost of Adolf Hitler and the old SS divisions,
let me address.
What are the other options here?
Let me address.
What, suck Putin's dick?
He's not saying that either.
He's not saying.
He just. if you have any specific points to bring up, let me address them. Well, or talk to me, educate me if you have something else.
It's always these vague, they're part of a puppet
Alex,
in this grandmaster plan.
let me just address one of them. So I like to address. We got a small but faithful audience. I don't want to dismiss them. If you have a specific point, let's talk about it. We talked about again, your point would be like an example. Kolomoisky runs Azov, right? We thoroughly put that in the fucking ground by now, right? Rich man owns, rich Jewish guy owns, what would be called gladio Nazis, right? Or gladio fascists, gladio nationalists, whatever. That's been dead and buried now for a while. I mean, to say that Ukraine isn't being given weapons, but it's obviously false. But it's just, how to put it. It's hard to put away the idea that Ukraine, because we're entering a rhetorical trap.
Supposed to get fucking weapons.
Well, no, it's a rhetorical trap, right? And it's not based on facts on the ground, which is why I research all this shit as much as I do. I try to speak geolocated position changes and what's actually happening, not proposals and stuff. The point is that it's a rhetorical trap to say that, well, smaller nation is getting weapons from bigger nation, therefore little nation is puppet of bigger nation, right? It's an alliance of convenience for some people, and that's how politics works sometimes. The survival of a nation that needs weapons, they went to the guy with the biggest stick, and the guy gave him a couple of twigs. And the old twigs at that. It's not even the good shit.
Right.
To say that Ukraine is being used, how, dude? Educate us. Come on. I want to say this for your own benefit. I feel like you fell into a rhetorical side. It's literally, we talked about Russians' operations for information space. It's called strategic communications. I feel like you fell into one of those things. It's just well, big brother talk to little brother. That's all it is. It's not based in anything factual. It's just a rhetorical trap and a logical misstep. It's also what was that thing we talked about fucking 2 months ago? That Soviet mathematician. You start with a rationalization point. People will naturally fill in the logical steps, right? And I feel that that's part of that too. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, Pulp. Yeah, again. Yeah, we'll get into the comment here, guys. I'm sorry. I'll just real short here before we get to the intermission here. Stanley Gale finally says, and we'll close it here. I believe the situation is similar to war games. Quote, the only way to win is not to play. India has every right to slaughter every last Anglo in the territory back in the day.
They don't.
They didn't. Gandhi did a thing. Okay, I know where you're
completely disagree. Yeah.
I'm picking
the British Empire did wonders for the Raj.
Okay. Anyway, no, Gail. I want to engage. You guys, we're all peers here. We're all learning together. I don't do this just for my own ball fanning. I want to talk and discuss ideas too. But yeah, again, we'll just fucking move on. So anyway, at your behest, of course. But anyway, so we got a next intermission here, guys. It's about 10 minutes long, so get some water, get a drink, go smoke, whatever, and we'll be right back. Okay. I guess we'll do combat footage for you guys this week. So we'll see you on the other side.
I don't even care what my mother thinks. My mother goes, "You got to stop." I said, "No." My sister, "You're being selfish." I said, "Fuck you." Ladies and gentlemen, the name of the game is Pindia. The objective of the game is to drop a Google Street View pin anywhere in India and not find garbage or shit. Bonus points for a dead body. Here we go. Let's play the game. All right, Derek, would you like to do the honors? Where should we drop the first pin?
Let's try and go smack dab in the middle. There's got to be
right there, Nagpur.
Yeah, that looks good. Trash right away. Trash.
Oh, Derek,
trash.
I'm afraid you've lost the game. Would you like to play again?
It's hard to win.
I think that's a dead body too. Honestly,
that could be a dead man. Yeah,
oh wait, let's before we move on, let's have a little look-see at their river here, their little ditch. Surprisingly clean. Honestly, this might be the cleanest part of India that I've ever seen. Oh wait, no, it's full of garbage. All right, well let's let you try again, Derek. Where would you like to drop the next pin?
Let's go 1 inch north from the center.
1 inch north, right about here.
Looks good.
Oh, look, it's covered in. Oh, look, there's a big garbage pile right there.
More trash.
Oh, look, it's just littered with garbage everywhere.
Ugh. Trash.
Oh.
Dead grass. Shit. Toilet paper.
Hang on, I got to get a better view on this.
I see why you left there, Victor.
Oh, yeah.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? You're with the world's most invasive species. You're the world's most irresponsible breeders. You're in the whitest country possible. What do you mean? Yes. You're a biological weapon in this country. Hey, Pajit, you're a biological weapon in this country. And you should be ashamed of yourself. You're a white woman. What are you going to do? Mix your genetics up with the shit skin?
What do you mean?
What do you mean, what do I mean? There's 1.3 billion of those fucking Pajits.
What are you talking about me like that?
There's 1.3 billion Pajits.
Just leave us, okay?
This is the whitest country on earth.
Leave us.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Leave us, okay?
Be ashamed of yourself.
What are you doing?
Be ashamed. Look at you.
What are you doing?
Why don't you have some more glasses?
You're fucking beginner, you are fucking, you bloody.
По городу едем, везде мигранты, полные улицы мигрантов.
Даже возле банкомата стоит на велосипеде.
И обналичивает.
Наличие, да, подходит.
Потому что там денег нет, он наличит.
Он наличит, да, в банкомате денег нет, он предлагает услуги. А по-русски говорит с акцентом.
Вот мы, это, ребят, просто мы по улице едем, вот.
Вот подряд, да.
Везде, абсолютно везде, любые работы, стройка, дорога, бордюры, все полностью, везде мигранты, конкретно все рабочие мигранты. Нет, не надо. Вот едем по городу дальше, абсолютно везде. Просто только повернули, все, пожалуйста.
Україна мати, ми за Україну підемо воювати, батько наш Бандера, Україна мати, ми за Україну підемо воювати.
Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! Батько наш Бандера.
Україна мати, ми за Україну підемо воювати, батько наш Бандера, Україна мати, ми за Україну підемо воювати.
Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! Україна!
Oh, my first day at the White House? I'm so excited to meet Biden. Look, he might not be what you'd expect.
You were very good during your sponge bath.
Yay! I can have ice cream, please.
Not until after your press conference.
Oh, but...
We can't have you crashing from your sugar high before you have to speak.
Oh, no fair.
Mr. President, it's such an honor to meet you.
Did I say you could talk to me? Take your seat, you disgusting, degenerate freak.
What?
All right, you bunch of dysgenic invalids. Who's got the plan for overturning state laws that prohibit sex changes for children?
Me. We should be able to have it legalized in the next few weeks.
Incredible. You look exactly as disgusting as I thought you would.
I also have the report on spreading abortion rights.
Brilliant. You'll never procreate. Why should anyone else?
Mr. President, you seem different from...
The senile old coot you see on television? Sorry to disappoint you, sodomite, but you've got to give the people what they want. And the American people don't want a leader. They want a distant, incompetent sunsetter. Because vegetables don't judge you. They let you carry on indulging in your filthy ways.
I don't get it. Are you pro-gay, or why are you promoting LGBTQ legislation?
Oh, fantastic. I see our DEI hiring quotas include the learning disabled now. Sabotage. Can you say it with me? Sab-o-tage.
Sabotage?
Good job.
So this is why you're printing trillions? And have pushed us 30 trillion into debt?
You fool. You speak of money, of 30 trillion. This country owes a debt not of money, but of blood. We have angered God, and the wage of that sin is the inevitable death that awaits us. And I've come to collect that debt. Not by my own hand, but by theirs. By encouraging them to continue to roll around in the filth of their own sin, to bring closer to their house the wrath of a God who is owed justice. Don't you see it? We have entire parties, whole movements.
Mr. Biden, we have that press conference in 5...
Ice cream! Yay! Ice cream!
Okay, Mr. Biden, see you then.
Whole movements dedicated to the promotion of pure evil. Do you think it's a coincidence that the abortionist, the pornographer, and the groomer all find common cause and aggressively march to protect one another? Of course not. The creed of all three is the destruction of innocence, because they've debauched themselves past even mere callousness and into a disfigured spiritual state of pure burning hatred towards anything beautiful, anything that reminds them that there's something in the world aside from their own hideousness.
Why are you guys helping him?
Oh, because I'm wrong and nothing bad will happen. This is creating a better future. Love is